As he alluded to in a previous video, Josh from Make Art Now sent me the 3D focus module for the DJI RS2, and today we're going to see what has him so excited. Let's get undone. Gerald Undone. He's crazy. What's happening, everybody? I'm Gerald Undone, and this is The Way. All right, let's give Josh a call so we can compare our experiences using this thing.
What do you want?
I got the, what are you doing?
I was totally wrong. This IR blocking sunscreen doesn't work.
This guy sent me a message the other day saying he was gonna test the IR sunblock he's got to see it. What were you trying to do? So it would focus on your face or not focus on your face?
You remember the last video we did where we did a bunch of tests and I wanted to see if the IR, so this $50 sunblock blocks near infrared. So it's essentially anything that's blocking it is going to bounce. It's going to reflect some of that near IR. And that's going to make the focusing work better. But this doesn't do it at all. So it's, in theory, this would have been great because think about this. If you're filming talent and you want it to focus on their face and not on their shirt, you put a little bit of this on there, regardless of what time of day. And in theory, it would pull better focus on their face. But that's not the case. This doesn't work at all.
I had a question for you, Josh.
Yeah.
Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you could really use some footage, but shooting yourself was either budgetarily or logistically unfeasible by chance?
What the hell is this? Is this a sponsored?
I mean, if that ever happened to you, Storyblocks, would have you covered with just a great catalog of, a great collection of stock footage. They got a wide range of subjects, unlimited downloads, and 4K video. Did you know about this? This is just an organic conversation.
Let me tell you how much he cares about this brand. He put it at the beginning of his video. Man, my God.
I should also let everybody know that Storyblocks is amply supplied with not only stock footage, but backgrounds, overlays, and After Effects templates. And the interface is easy to use and navigate. And the clips are royalty free for personal and commercial use, so you can use them as much as you want, whenever you want. Josh, did you know that?
Fantastic. That's great.
Exactly. So if you want to take advantage of a fantastic library of quality stock footage and effects, make sure you check out Storyblocks using the link in the description below.
Send royalty checks to Josh Yo at Make Art Now.
I'll tell you what we'll do instead. We'll put the affiliate link for the 3D focus and like the DJI stuff. We'll put the Make Art Now affiliate links in the description below because you've done way more work on this than I have, so you deserve it. So that if you guys want to get any of this stuff, this is a great gimbal, by the way. It's a fantastic gimbal, the RS2. Editor Gerald here, and I'm not completely satisfied with the disclosure this bozo provided, so let me clear up a couple things. This video is sponsored by Storyblocks, not by DJI. DJI did send me the RS2 gimbal so that I could make this video with Josh, but my opinions are my own, and DJI does not get any input on this video's production or get to preview it before it's published. Lastly, regarding the links in the description, the link to Storyblocks is mine, but I'll use Josh's affiliate links specifically for the DJI products. Apologies for any ambiguity. Now let's get back to the video. All right, so where did we leave off with the testing? You did the IR thing. I knew that. I figured that was going to be a bust, but I appreciated your courage on that one.
I think it's fair to point out that this does not operate like a normal autofocus system at all. It shouldn't even be considered in the same category as autofocus. This is more of like a specialty focusing device that is closer to like a mediocre first AC. You know what I mean? Like,
you think so? You don't think it's a good first AC?
It can focus with pretty good accuracy at shallow depths of field. Like we're talking razor thin, f/0.95. You can use manual lenses. You can use anamorphic lenses. I got a couple of these Sirui anamorphic lenses. I've been testing them out. They work great on them. So we're talking about mediocre to pretty good autofocus on lenses that have never had autofocus before. So it's very specific.
Interestingly though, I told you I was gonna do that. So right now I've got the 90mm macro for Sony, and this is the a7S III. And I threw this one on so that we could actually see, because you compared it to the a7 III autofocus a little bit, and you said that especially in the low light situations that it was actually doing better than the a7 III in some situations. So I thought I'd throw on the a7 III and the a7S III and use the 90mm macro, which for people that don't know, I was able to get away with it because it has a manual focus clutch, where if you use a focus by wire lens, it's no good because there's no stops. And when you mentioned this in your video, This is a continuation video, by the way, for those that are like, what are these guys talking about? Josh has already made like 1 or 2 videos on this, so you maybe want to watch those as like a primer.
I've already done all the homework, so if you guys want to jump on the train and figure out what the hell we're talking about, there's 2 videos you should watch, and it's all kind of in there.
This is almost like a podcast more than anything. In fact, we've been talking about like podcast ideas. This is probably the closest we've come outside of those live streams. Okay, so yeah, you can't use focus by wire lenses because when you go to calibrate it, it's just going to spin and spin and spin and spin, and you need stops for it to figure it out. So with the 90mm, there's a focus clutch, so you can click it into hard stop mode, but we can also just click it back to autofocus and then compare it. And I had some interesting results. So I would say that I would say it kept up with the A7 III, kind of like what you said. The A7S III definitely beat it, but what was interesting is that I've never seen autofocus, and I'm talking about in-camera internal autofocus, work as quickly as this works. I did some like pop in, pop out tests, and it's like immediate. If you stick your face in the shot, it just like snaps to your face. And people say that all the time. They say, oh, the autofocus is snappy. This is like unreal how fast it is. I mean, if that's something that you want a specific thing for, then that does it. However, I did have some issues in which the A7S III has eye detect autofocus. So because this is a macro lens and it's like a portrait lens as well, you can get really close. Just in your face has a lot of depth. And so my big honker with the A7S III, it knows to avoid my nose and focus on my eye. But this thing, I don't know if it was the way that I positioned it, but it just focused on my nose, and I couldn't make it not do that because there's no,
That's actually interesting. You would not, I wouldn't have thought that it would focus on your nose because of the surface area. Like, it would focus more on your cheeks or your forehead. Like, you got to keep in mind, this is sending out little packets of photons that basically pull focus by bouncing off. They have to reflect off of certain surfaces. So like surface area matters. So like it focusing on the ridge of your nose is kind of like.
What are you trying to say, Josh, about surface area?
I mean, I knew you had like a decent sized nose, but I didn't know your nose is that big.
But yeah, the pop in, pop out stuff was fantastic, and it tracked in certain scenarios. It tracked better than when you step outside the bounds of what autofocus can do. This thing still seems to keep working, whether that's extreme low light or issues where you're backlit in weird ways and overexposure and stuff like that. It doesn't seem to care about any of that, like you said. So that's cool,
It's terrible for sit-down interview shots. If you like this camera, I'm vlogging here on the Sony A7S III. It's pulling focus just fine. It's reading my eyes. If I were to use this, it would read my chest.
Did you find that if you change your clothes that...
So colors do kind of matter, like dark, like black materials like that are really thin tend to absorb more of the IR, whereas white material that would be hard and dense or metallic material would reflect it. So you'd have an easier time. Like I found the easiest thing to pull focus on is a car, an old car, because it's all metal. So if you're into car stuff, like this thing is definitely for you.
There's also a height thing I've been noticing. What I did is I brought a focus chart into the frame slowly from the bottom to see how high up in the frame I had to get before it would trip up. And I found I had to get into the top half, top third of the frame to trigger it, which makes me think that it's just based on, height priority or something. But I also noticed that, how it comes, there's this little, it converts the shoe. It comes with a shoe mount and then into like a 1/4 with locating pins. I found that when I had that on, the height that you needed to achieve was even greater. So it works better in the shoe. But have you ever tried like bringing it forward or anything like that to like?
So all right. So funny you say that. Filming Anamorphia, we obviously halfway through the shoot, we wanted to switch to regular spherical lenses to anamorphic lenses. And so I was like, well, we might as well try this, 3D focus, see how it works. And what I found is that the 3D focus was bouncing. The anamorphic lens is so heavy and so big that it was actually bouncing off of the metal and interfering. So it wasn't giving me good results. In fact, before I knew the tech, I just thought that it just didn't work with anamorphic lenses. So what I found, a way to get over that is like this little extension right here. This is a hot shoe, cold shoe extension, and it was able, you fit it onto the hot shoe, and then you balance it right in front of the lens.
Could you use the regular cables, or did you have to use longer cables?
No, the regular cables stretched. I mean, it was tight, but I could have used longer cables, but we were able to make it work.
Okay.
I took this thing out to the desert, by the way. Check this out. So this is a $300 f/0.95 lens that I got on eBay. This thing is like 10 or 15 years old. Nobody cares about this lens. They totally forgot about it. It's a micro four thirds mount. I mounted it on the Pocket 4K. I went out to the middle of Mojave Desert to Red Rocks Canyon, and I did a couple of test shoots. This thing pulls focus perfectly. It's the exact equivalent style of shots that I got with a $12,000 lens back 2 years ago when I did that last Moondance Mojave shoot. So like, we're now talking about a whole influx of creativity shooting under moonlight where it's not going to cost you that much. I mean, obviously you got the investment of the RS2 plus, the focus module, but then you're using a camera that doesn't have autofocus and you're using a lens that has no shelf life. It worked with the focus module and the tracking. It was tracking me through a canyon and pulling focus, and I'd say it was pulling perfect focus like 50 to 60% of the time.
It's so weird. Like I've been doing so many autofocus tests for these like the new Cine cameras and stuff because they all have autofocus now. And I keep testing certain ways, and then I try to test this thing, and it kept breaking my brain, like expecting it to work a certain way, and then it works somewhere different. Like I'll tell you, I took it out and I did some follow shots with it, and that worked really well. I was just walking around a path in the woods, and it was like as long as you keep your subject in the center, it had like a great hit rate. But I also found that it was weird if you tried to target it, it gets strange. Where with autofocus, if you point it at something, I find that good autofocus systems almost kind of know what you want to focus on, and they usually do a pretty good job. And then when that thing leaves the frame, it kind of slowly pulls to the background. This is a whole different animal to that. And so you have to really, I guess, plan what you want to do. And you probably have to do one or two kind of practice ones just to make sure, like, if I'm up here, what's it going to focus on? It makes you think differently.
It's not meant, I don't think this device is meant for the average run and gun shooter. This is more stylized. It's meant for those shooters that shoot anamorphic. They shoot with vintage lenses. They shoot with weird obscure lenses like, this what is this? This Noctor f/0.95 micro four thirds. In those use cases, this is clutch. There's not another product on the market, and it's very, very helpful.
I think that niche you've dialed it in is because there's people who like are in love with vintage lenses, right? And for them, if they're just a solo shooter who wants a specific look with a vintage lens, then yeah, I mean, what does this thing cost? Like $169, and now you can add autofocus to your vintage lenses. That's a great value add, especially if you have a collection of these things. What's $169 to enable something to all your lenses? But it also doesn't hit that category where you're using Cine Glass and you have somebody pulling focus. So it's that interesting market segment that's not somebody who just wants to use autofocus on their gimbal. Like the A7S III is very capable, just pointing at things and it mostly works, but not vintage glass.
Also for low light shooters, like if you guys watch, my stuff, I'm always filming like really low light and really pushing the boundaries on like
you're like the target. No wonder you're so excited with this. You're like the target person.
Dude, I almost passed on it because when I first opened the box and I was like, what the hell is this thing? Like they send you this little tiny janky thing and you're like, how is this going to work? And then like there's a steep learning curve. If you don't hook it up correctly and you don't know how to calibrate it, you just think that it just doesn't work. But the science is there. It clearly works. And when you know the science of like what it focuses on best and you lean into that, it works really well. You get really good results.
So funny, in your second video, you did a bunch of tests and you talked about foliage and water and that kind of thing. So it's winter here in Canada. I don't live in LA, so I tried to do the the equivalent of that. And I went out to the woods. Most of the leaves are gone, and our water is snow and ice. So I did my Joshio surface tests out there, and I'll report back to you. So snow worked surprisingly. Now this was kind of frozen, and it depended more on like how frozen and like crystalline it was. that would, dictate how well it focused. But you can, I know you said water doesn't work very well, but like frozen snow seems to work. So that's interesting. And the leaves worked, but they were dead and on the ground.
Water absorbs infrared, near IR. It absorbs it. That's what evaporates water. So like, what I want to know is if you were filming a swimmer, a girl in a bikini coming out of the ocean, is it going to pull focus on her face, or does she need to be dry?
You're back to your like sunscreen test again. You're like throwing water.
I mean, what are you going to film snow, or like what are you going to film snow for? Just pull focus manually.
And obviously, I ran into big problems with these like dead trees and sticks and stuff, because if you have thin little objects and they don't have any like leaves on them, I mean, that's just not going to work. So I had issues focusing on nature in winter, if that makes any sense, because there's not enough like chlorophyll and to make it work.
That's the other thing is that leaves are filled with chlorophyll, and that rejects near IR. So actually, a tree full of leaves is gonna probably pull focus better than it's probably up there along with a vintage metal car.
Well, I don't have those, Josh. I have dead trees with no leaves on them, okay? So the best scenario that I found where it just worked really well, if you wanted to like showcase it working well, an isolated subject, like a person far away from like the background, just kind of like isolated, and it works fantastic. You can run all around and point it, and it just seems to work really well. As long as you keep them in the middle. You can't do like off on the thirds,
I mean, most of the time, like a lot of the stuff I like to film is isolated, like out in the desert, out in the middle of nowhere.
Man, you're such the perfect, you're the ideal, this is your number one product, man.
I know, it's perfect. I can't say enough about it. And so it's kind of a great conversation because we're both bringing to, your struggles with it and my like total affinity for it.
Here's where I found my biggest struggles though. People who know my studio, it's a somewhat small space, so there's a lot of like dimensionality up close and tight, and I found that I couldn't really get it to work too well in like a tight space, which is obviously the opposite of an isolated subject. And so for me personally, maybe you can speak the opposite of it, if not, but I wouldn't recommend it for, shooting anything with a lot of objects in a tight space, because you just don't know what it's going to do.
What I found is that this is not ideal for product videography, because that implies that the object is sitting on top of another object, right? Like a desk or a table or whatever. And so the autofocus most of the time was bouncing off the table and giving me false readings. So product videography is not really a good use for it. But outdoors, if you're one of those travel vloggers and you do like the whimsical thing where the girl's following you or running her hands through wheat, like this actually would work really well, especially if you're trying to keep your budget down. You got a $1,300 camera, never had autofocus before, and then you got another $300 lens, and now you're getting autofocus that no other camera on the market can get, which is extreme low light under certain conditions with razor thin depth of field. I mean, it's mind blowing.
Yeah, I think that's a good note to sort of end on. It's like, creatives who want to pursue different, like always trying to come up with like a different kind of like creative take, try something a little different, try something maybe they couldn't do, then this is another tool that potentially could do that with some caveats, like you said. Just don't think of it like regular Sony Canon autofocus, where you're like, doop, and you like tap on something, or like, it'll get my eye. Don't treat it like that. Treat it like a creative tool where you can do kind of potentially interesting stuff with lenses that you wouldn't be able to use otherwise.
Boom, there you go. See you later, Joe. Is this thing the biggest that you'll ever meet in your entire life? Wanna give him a noogie, but he's twice your size.